It's Passion Week at UCFM, celebrating Death to Life, the Resurrection. Wednesday, Passion to Pray, Midweek Renewal, 6:30 p.m., Main Sanctuary. Thursday, Passion to Change, Culture Shift Concert at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Main Sanctuary, with live performances by Sika Sin, Carlos Vaughn, Chandrika J, 180 Slim, Darian Ellis, our very own Ablaze Youth Choir, Kay Levy, and 1K Few. Friday, Passion to Love, Forgiven a Rise, a theatrical production. Saturday, Passion to Connect, 9 o'clock a.m., Kingdom Missions Homeless Outreach. 1 o'clock p.m., it's a UCFM cookout. Sunday, Passion to Redeem, Resurrection Sunday at UCFM at both 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. To register and for more information, text PASSION23 to 225-250-1970. As we continue to do church in the digital age, stay engaged. Download our UCFM app today and visit our website at ucfministries.org. Thanks for tuning in, and until next week, be blessed.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Hello. It is Passion Week, everyone. Today, we commemorate the 55th year of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King. And, of course, it is the week of resurrection. Today, we have a guest of panelists here who are going to share some things that they do in our community and how we can uplift our community and live out the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm here with United Excel Social Justice Institute at United Christian Faith Ministry. United Excel Social Justice Institute is charged with educating the church and community on issues affecting their lives morally, socially, domestically, and economically. As we educate, we also develop strategies to improve the lives of those often left off or left out. That is why we're here today. We want to talk about strategies as it relates to economic empowerment, how we can build better neighborhoods. I have a couple of guest panelists here with you today, and they're going to share with you. I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce our panelists and our moderator for tonight. Take a moment and click share this video. Make sure you get others and encourage others to tune in for this great town hall. And welcome once again. First, we have with us Desiree Collins. Desiree Collins is with Early Childhood Education Specialist. She's family and community engagement. She is purpose-driven to support the next generation as value partners and collaborators in the advancement of our community through early child development, youth mentorship, and social emotional learning for all advocates for humanity. Welcome, Ms. Collins. We are so excited to have you today.
Thank you.
Our next guest we have with us is Miss Symphony Malvo. She's a Louisiana native. She has her MPA and holds the position of Community Engagement Manager for Mid-City Redevelopment Alliance. She consults, strategizes, and implements community projects that increase the quality of life for all residents and local businesses in neighborhoods throughout East Baton Rouge Parish. Welcome, 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 Symphony. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. We also have with us Dr. James Gilmore. Dr. Gilmore is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He earned his BA in political science and master's in public administration from Southern University and his PhD in human resources from Louisiana State University. Upon completion of his master's degree, James was hired by a Fortune 500 company, USG Corporation, to manage their human resources department. His major responsibilities included recruiting and hiring staff, workforce training and development, safety management, benefits and payroll, and employee relations. Welcome, 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 Dr. Gilmore. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you very much.
We also have with us Darius Lannis. Darius Lannis is bringing power back to the people of the community here in Baton Rouge. He is a fighter, particularly for North Baton Rouge, and native son of the Glen Oaks community. He is a lifelong resident of District 5 and a product of EBR Public School System, and currently serves as the president of our school board. Welcome, Darius. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have our moderator. Our moderator, Pastor Dr. Mark Ellis. He is an inspired leader, writer, musician, business practitioner, pastor, and evangelist who has extensively traversed this nation sharing God's word and kingdom principles with people of all races and backgrounds. Pastor Ellis' messages have been the source of inspiration, transformation, and salvation to people all across the world. He's our pastor, advocate, founder of United Excel Social Justice Institute. Welcome, Pastor. We look forward to a great conversation.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Christy Perry, for your visionary leadership in putting on this panel and finding such distinguished guests that we can engage in conversation and perhaps arrive at even some more incredible outcomes concerning our community and ultimately what we've been called to do around the world. So thank you again, and I'm excited about getting into this conversation.
Thank you.
Well, I'm excited. Our panel has been introduced, and team, thank you again for your commitment to sharing insight to this thing called passion and passion for living. You know, in the Bible tells us that Jesus Christ had a passion, and Psalm 69:9 says he had a zeal for the house of God, and that his passion was for God's house or God's people. And Psalm 69:9 said it consumed him. And we know today is April 4th, of course, and we reflect upon the assassination of Dr. King, but not just the assassination, his lifelong work. And in my readings of discovery, I found out that Dr. King had a lifelong passion for learning and education, and it consumed him. He graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts from Morehouse College at the age of 19 years old. He received a Bachelor's of Divinity degree at the age of 22 years old, and his doctorate degree in systematic theology from Boston College at 26 years old. And throughout his journey of those 39 wonderful years, he was an avid reader, and he respected all disciplines of life and challenged others around him. I never forget in my work, working with the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson as Chief Operating Officer for the Rainbow Push Coalition, one of the first things they did in my orientation was share with me that there is nothing worse than an ignorant freedom fighter. They wanted to know what was in my library and what was I reading and my background knowledge to the civil rights struggle, and did I clearly understand the panoramic perspectives of all those who contributed to such a movement. Passion was everything. And for those who I've worked with who were very successful, whether it was in corporate America or in religious sectors, all had great passion. I want to start tonight with talking about that thing called passion. And where did you perhaps find your passion to do the community work that you do? So in a few short words, maybe, Desiree, we'll start with you tonight. Where did you find your passion to do community work?
I think my passion began with being a recipient of phenomenal people in my community. I grew up in Banks,
Yeah.
and it was a close partnership that they shared with Southern Heights, and how the professors there would connect with the families in Banks and provide resources that help to build resilience through life's experiences. And so I think being associated with people who brought about change in my life and the change in the community that I lived inspired me to do the same.
Awesome. Symphony, what about you? Where did you find your passion to do community work?
I've actually always had a passion for serving. I just didn't know in what capacity.
Okay.
And just over the past few years working in this organization, having the work, being honored to do the work that I do now, I've discovered that my passion really rests with helping my community live the life that they deserve to live in the community that they deserve to have in the capacity that they want. And in whatever that looks like, whether it's programming to experiences to just being able to have a house that their grandparents, their grandkids can live in. So I've discovered that's where my passion is leading me into, but I've always had a desire to serve.
Awesome. Dr. James, what about you? Where did you find your passion?
Well, I too am from Banks, and I found my passion from my mother. She was a social worker for Banks Head Start and East Baton Rouge Parish Head Start for over 40 years. And so just being, that's almost a majority of my life, more than a majority of my life. And so just growing up in the household with her and my dad, he was in the union. And so with a social worker as a mom and a union guy as a dad, I've been around service and advocacy and justice all of my life.
Awesome. And Brother Lanius, what about you? Where did you find your passion?
I would say school. One of the most prolific movies I've ever watched in my life, and it opened my eyes at the time, was I watched the story of Emmett Till for the first time when I was in the 9th grade. And I wasn't even prepared for what I was about to see. I just remember walking into JRTC, and our instructor at the time played the movie. And I just, out of nowhere, I could just remember tears coming down my eyes as I'm just watching, and I'm wondering to myself, how could someone do something of that nature to a kid who was just innocent? He didn't know anything about the environment that he was in, and it really resonated with me and my mother, because my mother was a single parent, much like his was. And I saw myself through the lens of Emmett Till. And I always told myself that I want to be a fighter against those types of injustices that happen all over the country, but more specifically right here in our city.
Wow. Incredible. For those who are watching, I want to reiterate what we just heard. Passion can be found by being a recipient of services, someone coming alongside helping you. It's tapping within and understanding it's always been there. That intrinsic motivation, just perhaps finding the right environment and it's stimulating you to the works of your hands. One of our panelists said their mother, a role model, having the right guidance in your life, someone who's modeling perhaps for you. It's a way to find passion. Environment, the school environment, watching a documentary or watching history. It has been said, the purpose of history is to teach us morality. Looking back at history and seeing injustice stimulates you to passion. Panelists, here's something I've read. It said that why most people have either lost passion or never really discover it. Two things. It said depression. And then another one was having no idea of what's important to them. Like, I just haven't found my passion. So think about that. Depression, a lot of people are dealing with depression, which can be the antithesis to really being passionate about whatever the role it is you're called to or the responsibility given to your hands. Depression, and then having no idea as to what's important to them. Exposure. And sometimes our kids, though we think we're educating them, we're not exposing them to what perhaps Dr. Lanius, a school showing him a documentary and it's stimulating something within. Let's talk about those two just for a moment. Depression. Was there ever a time you dealt with depression and you lost your passion, the passion to live? Anybody want to share?
I'll jump in.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Doc.
we can both talk about this, but I'll let you go first, young man.
For me, it was a blind depression, if that makes any sense, because every day you're so desensitized to your environment. And I've seen this growing up inside of Glen Oaks. You know, it became normal to have to sleep on the floor because gunshots are going off. It became normal that you see fighting happen every day with people who are like cousins. It became a normalization to us, and nobody really said much about it because it was like, you know, this is stigma of where we are. This is what happens in this area, and that was just left blanketed like that. And it was a gross depression, right? Because it wasn't anything that I intrinsically took on myself. It was something that I saw around me, and I just started to mold myself into that. But it was almost like the phrase or the philosophy that Tupac once said: somebody has to be the rose that grows throughout the concrete. And you got a lot of roses out there that are scratched up, marked up, but they just need a little water. And that's what I saw in myself. And I think that's how I was able to overcome the depression for what I saw inside of my community. And now when you bring life back to it, when you bring order back to it, you're breathing life back into the community, you know, and that's more of a cure for a lot of the depression that we see happening every day.
Absolutely, man. That's incredible. Dr. James.
I'm not sure where you read that study, or you might have said it, but absolutely, those are two critical battles of having passion in this service. When you say no idea about what's important, what often has brought on depression in my life is realizing and feeling that everything is so important, and just trying to figure out where to invest my time and resources. Yeah. Is it helping to shelter people? Is it helping to feed people? Is it helping to educate people? Is it helping people to get jobs? And that's what sometimes has led to my depression, is I feel overwhelmed because it's such a heavy load to carry and to lift. You want to give up. You almost lose that passion because you feel as if it's an unwinning battle. Yeah. But thank God for strong faith and courage and prayers and family and friends and the small wins and big wins. You know, I can gain my motivation back pretty quickly as an adult. But I can definitely attest to what you're speaking as it relates to those two things that you mentioned being things that challenge having a passion to continue this work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ladies, anybody want to weigh in on that?
I want to speak towards purpose.
Yeah.
I think that every person is born with a purpose. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in the society that they may be born into, that there's no one to nurture them and help them to identify the fact that you are created for a reason, that there is purpose in your life. And then after that, to nurture whatever that purpose is. Many times as a society, because it's something we may not have seen before or we're not familiar with, we have a tendency to stifle it, silence it, or tell it that it doesn't fit here or it's not a realistic thing. Instead of realizing that if someone has a passion in them, more than likely it aligns with what their purpose to do anyway. So when we have people who are discouraged, I think it's because there's not a lot of conversation that focuses on allowing people to be validated that the way that they are today, more than likely is just right. And when we take the time to nurture that, it gives it, when the word of God says your gifts will make room for you, mm-hmm. I don't think we take the time to teach people that they are gifted, that they are purposed. And therefore, it not only does it make room for them, it makes room for our community. I think that's when God's kingdoms will come and God's will be done is through us and in our ministry service and in purpose. And we have to start to kind of look at things differently when we're encouraging people about why they're purposed. And then I think the passion follows through.
Awesome. I love it. Symphony.
I mean, just adding onto that, I truly believe that passion doesn't really die, but it gets smothered. Mm-hmm. And what we've talked about a lot is that if you really believe that we didn't create our own passions and our passions came from God or any spiritual being, then we didn't create it, which means it cannot die. Yes. But it does get smothered a lot about the things that we do, as you said, being overwhelmed with the different things that's on your schedule, being overwhelmed with all the beautiful things you want to do and may not have the opportunity to do it, or it's just not something you think that you're capable of doing. And I know that's how my passion has gotten smothered in the past and where my depression has come from. I mean, just being recently out of a depression, I know I was very smothered with a lot of the work that I was doing and then being able to serve all the people that are in my circle. But then also when we think about what was the other, not being introduced to certain things.
Yeah,
I think
not having no idea of what's important to
Yes.
you.
Not having no idea. One person, I was reading this book and it said, if you're looking for your passion or you're looking for your purpose and you're an adult, look at the things that you like to do as a kid. That 9 times out of 10 will be the things that you're going to fall into as an adult. So, and then also keeping your eyes open to every single thing that you're doing and every career position that you have in. I mean, I used to work at Foot Locker. I used to work at Rainbow 579. And many times people think you can't really get too much out of retail. But then I realized in all those experiences, my happiest moments is when I thought I was helping someone find a shoe to go run in and serving them in their health benefits. And I'm now working community development, but all of that is still serving. But if had I not opened up my eyes to see, there has to be a reason why I'm coming and clocking into Foot Locker every day. It can't just be for the discount. You have to find a reason and always keep your eyes open. And then from there, you can put all the pieces together and hopefully align with the passion that's meant for you.
Awesome. And I want to come back and meet you halfway, the 50-yard line, where you're talking about finding a reason. Let's see if we can score a touchdown here, because my next question has to do with how do you not lose passion to do this kind of community work. Now, I'm a pastor as well, so I know pastors a lot of times take a lot of criticism, but what people don't know is many pastors deal with depression because you're overwhelmed. 90% of the counseling you're doing is dealing with people's problems.
Yeah.
Very few people are bringing you things that are positive or giving you the kind of feedback you need to stay intrinsically and extrinsically motivated to keep your hands to the plow. But how do you not lose your passion when you see others either not willing to help, right? Or not willing to help to support because it's you or your organization? How do you not lose passion in doing community work, not doing what you love to do? Because sometimes we doing community work, let's face it, it ain't because we just love to do it. We see the need. It's like a calling on our life. It's a burden. And we don't know sometimes why we do what we do, but we do have to guard against that depression. And after doing it for a while, you can answer this question perhaps. How do you not lose your passion when you see others not willing to help?
Daily devotion for me. I have to pray every day. Every day, have to pray every night. And people, as much as they say, let's say I give a speech or something, they say, man, it's a really good speech. The part I have to always tell them is that before I give every speech, I'm always nervous, but I always pray that God orders my thoughts, orders my steps, orders my tongue, orders my ability to read the crowd. And I say all that to say, you can very much become overconsumed with everybody else's situations that you lose yourself and your ability to know, what you have to do to keep yourself on track. I can't tell you how much I do that. I confide honestly in Dr. Gilmore a lot, and he'll tell you that.
We talked about an hour today.
All right, I bounce stuff off of him, and he just tells me, how to deal with certain situations, because sometimes your anger can consume you because your passion is just that strong. You're like, I can't believe this is a thing. But you have to also remember that the people that you're dealing with, they may not be so far along as you are. So you have to sometimes ground yourself and bring yourself to their level and understand where they're coming from. And I think that makes a good leader, being able to pivot and understand where somebody else is coming from, and also being able to not use your attitude to be vindictive towards somebody.
Yeah,
you have to be really patient in the spaces that we're talking about.
I love it.
So what I do, Ms. Collins, you wanted to go?
No.
Okay, I thought I saw you about to speak. I wanted to give you the opportunity. Pastor, what I do is, number one is I try to find people who are like-minded and who have kindred spirits about this service, and I latch onto them in as many ways as possible to serve. Now, others may perceive that as cliquish, but if I have a Darius and a few others who I know I can get a job, get a service done, then that's who's going to be in my clique. It's not that I'm anti any other groups or cliques. It's just that I know if I need this done for the community, or if we have this issue in the community, I know I have Eugene Collins when it comes to justice. I know I have Darius when it comes to education. I know I have someone else when it comes to transportation issues. And so what I've done is what I call like my personal board of directors. And so I have my own group of people that I go to whenever I need to help help in lifting up an issue or a problem in our community. And they're my go-to folks. I also found a lot of less pressure on me when I created my own nonprofit, the Institute for Human Development, in 2018. It gives me and my board of directors the opportunity to serve and do things that we think is important, and we all are like-minded. And I'm a grant writer, so I can go get my own dollars to fund it, and it just allows me to be, again, to have my own personal board of directors around me with a nonprofit organization that has my own purpose to be able to focus. Because, you know, at my age, Pastor, I've been involved in lots of organizational and community related things, and the heavy lifting became a burden when it came to dealing with different personalities and people who are on different pathways. So I had to create my own small network of people to influence change. And whether it's considered small change or transformational change, it's less stress and less pressure on me, and I feel good at the end of the day. And so that's what works well with me. And then let's say I go outside of my immediate board of directors, Pastor, what I do is I sow into others. So though I may not be an expert, I always tell folks, I'm not the faith-based guru, okay? But I don't mind writing checks to churches and faith-based organizations who do the work that needs to be done. I asked someone yesterday, who's going to Rolling Fork to help those folks who were impacted by the tornadoes. No need in me getting a U-Haul truck if there is another group that's going, and I'll sow into them with finances or goods to send there. So what I also do is, if my network doesn't have the resources to get what I want to get done in service, I try to sow into someone else who's doing it, not duplicate what they're doing. Again, no need in me getting a U-Haul to go to Rolling Fork. If there's already 4 churches going to Rolling Fork, I can just sow into one or all of those churches going to Rolling Fork to help those in need. And so that's kind of been my strategy, is to sow into others and then focus on my niche.
This is important. I hope some leader is watching and leaders are watching this, because these are things you need to put in place up front when you get started, versus in the middle, you know, when the dissonance set in and you're discouraged, if you will. Knowing this up front, Jesus would say, who goes to build a tower doesn't first sit down and count up the costs to see if he has sufficiency, else why he's laughed at if he doesn't. So knowing what it takes for sustainability to stay in it. You talked about collaborative partners, surrounding yourself, and then those who are doing similar work, recognize and reward that behavior as well. It's like sowing what you want to reap. Also helps you from becoming so discouraged or losing that passion because the work is overwhelming, and or sometimes you're working for people sometimes who really are not embracive or even willing to receive what you're trying to offer. Desiree or Symphony, anything you want to add to that?
I was going to say, Dr. Gilmore, I think you spoke very highly and well on just building community. And I don't believe it's a click at all. It's building community. It's always important in whatever facet or industry you're in to build community of like-minded people, because those are the people that pull you through. They understand your passions, they understand your anger, and they're able to talk you in and around these experiences to get through them. But I think another part of that is also knowing when you're not the person that needs to be in the room.
Yes.
You may be the person that sees the issue, knows the issue is important and it needs to be addressed, but you may not be the right person to speak on that issue. So knowing when to step back and either push someone forward or allow other people to feel more comfortable in the space. And that has gotten me a lot further than me assuming that I need to be the one.
Amen.
Who needs the communities. I work in many different communities over East Baton Rouge, and I tell residents all the time, I'm not from your neighborhood. I can't tell you what's best. I can't tell you what you need to have, what you should have. But what I can do is tell you what can happen and support you through these efforts and support you in advocating for your community spaces. Because I know I'm not the best candidate to speak for what goes on in your community. And so being able to know when to step back is also very important.
I love it. I love it. I'm getting so much out of this, and I'm going to tie it to another aspect of community. Desiree, anything you want to add to that?
Yes. I think about the leaders, those who are called for these purposes, and just thinking about that you should give out of your overflow. So if you could think about a saucer and a cup. So the cup is full and the overflow is what comes into the saucer. And it's hard for people who are passionate about their purpose to know that what you have to give, that overflow, trust and believe that it is enough to meet the community's need. I'm always concerned about people who are completely poured out, and then what happens is their witness gets jeopardized.
Yeah.
That's when the community starts to see them basically dysfunction or the human side of them, because they didn't do the work to say no today, or like Symphony said, to go ahead and share the work with other people and realize the importance, like Dr. Gilmore said, of collaboration. So that what's happening is that you're giving out of your overflow. I'm always concerned about people who, and so thankful to be with y'all and hear what y'all was saying, because y'all are hyping me up. I'm just getting excited being with you. But then my thoughts go to, are you well? You know, are you making time to be intentional about taking care of yourself and doing what you need so you can continue to do this great work, because it's impactful. The community needs it. And we, like you talked about sustainability, we want to make sure that we're creating systems that can make it sustained, because you're here in this particular season, in this particular time for a reason. And boy, I hope that not only the people who are on this panel, but everybody who is called and working purposefully is taking time to give out of your overflow and allow your cup to be filled with people who, like Dr. Gilmore said, are like-minded. It's an iron sharpened iron part, but then making sure what's given to the community is the overflow so that you can continue this good work.
I love it.
I love it. This is so applicable in so many aspects. I'm thinking about home life. I hope the father of a home is listening to this conversation. I hope a mother is listening to this conversation as it relates to not getting burnt out or not giving up. Prayer, I heard prayer and devotion, finding like-minded people. Again, when I first got married, I said to myself, after, coming out of the street life and doing what I wanted to do and sowing my oats, I had to be around men who love their wives, right? I got to be around men who love their wives to sharpen me. And it didn't matter who they were. And all the time you wasn't finding it in the church, but I had to find that like-minded spirit, that like-minded person who was doing something. And then stand around visionary people, right? I think vision inspires passion as well when you know it came from God, when it looks like your back is up against the wall and it's not going to work out, or you're not seeing the degree of success you want to see. Just know if God showed you a vision, it is something he requires you to move towards by faith, not worrying about how it's going to happen, but just know in the end, he finds a way to get the glory and you get the greatest good from it. This is important. This is important. Let's shift and talk about some of the keys it takes for getting people to work together, because that's one of the issues seemingly we have, especially in South Louisiana, whether it's people of color, whether it's different institutions. We need more multi-institutional collaboration. And it appears that we've struggled with that, whether it's the church working with educational institutions working with the private sector. What would you say are some of the keys, fundamental keys of getting people to work together on some of these community systemic issues that we see happening over and over again? How do we get people to work together? Lanius, let's start with you. What would you add to that to give insight to others?
Two pieces. Isaac's second law of motion. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can be. Being careful about who you get into, because some people, they don't have the right intent. So discernment is a really big thing. Again, as I said before, that's why I try to be very steadfast when I talk about devotion. I pray for that every day. Please give me discernment to understand for me. That way, I don't have anything in you, but I can separate myself from you. The next piece I would say is some people have to be led. A key portion of our community for so long have felt like things haven't been done, so they're not inspired anymore. So it brings us to the next piece. As the body without faith, as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is also dead. Praying about something is only one piece. You have to be able to put it into action and show people why this is important. Because, as the old saying goes, it don't take a whole lot of people. It just takes enough concerned people to get something accomplished, to get something done, which I think feeds back to something that Dr. James Gilmore said. is that he connects to people he knows is going to do the work. He don't, he won't go out there and try to replicate this with somebody for the first time and he never saw them before. That also comes back to results. A result orientation is, understanding what you're working with, but also understanding how to inspire people. And sometimes it does not take a lot. Sometimes it can take a mere conversation, but sometimes some people have to be led and to see it. And when they do see it, they want to be a part of a plan.
Absolutely. I like that. So discernment, getting people with the right motives, that's so important. And team building, developing a plan. I love that, right? Having a plan and showing people the why that's important. Incredible. Dr. James, anything you want to add?
I do have some things I want to add. I'm just trying to figure out how to word them. First of all, it's trust. My dissertation was on trust in government and its correlation to civic and political engagement. And I think that where there's distrust or mistrust, we have to find ways to reconcile that in our community here in Baton Rouge, because a lot of our problems of not working together stems from people not trusting one another. Right. What we also do here in Baton Rouge, and I can't speak about Baton Rouge because I've been around here all of my life in various capacities, is we also tend to put people in charge or who lead causes and change. But these people also were part of the problem of creating the issues we have. And so sometimes we have to be careful here in our community in Baton Rouge that when someone wants to lead something, a change in our community, for those of us that have been around a long time, we know those people who were the cause of the issues that we're having right now. So we also got to be selective in who we pick to lead organizations and to lead change in our community and make sure they weren't the problem years ago. And then last but not least, we need to be ensure that we are equitable in how we allocate resources in our community. And that goes back to trust. When it comes to whether it's city contracts, whether it's where we build movie theaters, where we build grocery stores, where we repair highways, or where we put down new highways, or where we patch potholes, on deciding on what your zip code is. Exactly. That type of inequitable distribution of resources and support breeds mistrust. Okay, and that doesn't help us organize and work together. So I think in order for us to move forward and be motivated to move forward as a community, we really have to do sort of like what they did after apartheid. Is we have some reconciliations to do. We have some folks who deserve an apology. We have some communities that have been neglected over time that deserve undivided attention, not just a little bit of attention, not some attention, not a stop sign, not a road patch, but a new road, not affordable housing, but market rate housing. I would love to live in Banks or near Banks in a $300,000 home, but we don't have those options because on certain sides of towns, they don't believe that people have the money and the ability to live in those type of houses, and then therefore they don't have grocery stores and movie theaters. So I think we really have to reconcile some of the issues that led us to where we are in our community, and that includes some apologies and some true attention of allocating fair and equitable resources to where they need to be. And then folks would then say, oh, wow, you do care about my block. You do care about my community. You do care about whether I have fresh fruit options on my side of town. And when they see and feel that, then I think we'll see a greater sense of community.
Awesome. So much there. I'm not going to even try to unpack it. Let's see, Desiree, you want to add to that, or Symphony?
I can. I think that it's important to build relationships with the people that you're serving. Yeah. So when we talk about collaboratives, thinking about the stakeholders, and in the work that I do, stakeholders are children. They are families. They are businesses. They are leaders. And so making sure that you build a relationship with them, that you listen to exactly where they say they are. I find that many times people will tell you what their needs are if you listen. And sometimes we can overreach and we can do far more than was expected because we may come in with a savior complex, as opposed to simply asking people where you find yourself today and how can I help you from here, or not even that, how can I help you, just simply listening to where they find themselves today and knowing resources. That
Yeah.
collaborative part is also just being the individual who knows resources to be able to make available to those people, to support them. And maybe resources is enough. But then if resources isn't enough, they have a tendency to tell you that too. And you can almost tier the way that you serve others, based on their leading. And with that, the relationship gets stronger. They know,
Yes.
just like me, this is a place where I was able to have a different outcome. So they'll bring others. And many times they'll even buy into it too, because they know it works for them. So they want to make sure that it is something that is sustained and can work for others.
I
So
love
I
it.
think when we think about collaborations, it's about building relationship and shared expectations, listening to stakeholders.
Yes. Symphony, what you thinking?
Once you build those relationships with people, as Desiree said, it's from that you can understand the skill sets that are in the room. And then once you understand the skill sets that are in the room, you know how to better utilize people in the way that fits them the best for them to want to stay connected to the work. A lot of times we may accidentally or on purpose put people in places that they don't feel comfortable in. And when they're in these places, it makes them not want to stay connected to the work because this isn't what they're used to doing or want to do. So it's very important to understand people's skill set. And if they are a leader, awesome. But you may have 5 people and everybody's a leader. Someone
Yeah.
needs to be the writer. Someone needs to be the outreach person. Someone needs to be the graphic designer. All right. And so like really understanding where people rest and where they feel most comfortable to then place people where they would want to stay connected to the work
Yes.
versus, and that leads outside of just because I think this is important, but it's also attached to things that I like as well. And that's how you get true buy-in.
Exactly. That's so important. And I hope leaders are listening to this conversation, because sometimes we're guilty of managing money properly, but mismanaging people, misaligning people, promoting people to a level of incompetency. And sometimes we do it because we're trying to solve for the trust factor. I want people around me that I trust, but then sometimes the people that I trust are not capable or competent to deliver the results, right? And so you teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. So if you misalign to a role that you have fear or some interpretation about, you start reproducing that, right? Anybody that comes with a skill set perhaps that you may not have, or that seemingly threatens you in your role, there comes the friction or the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so unfortunate. That's why really getting it right in the planning, the wisdom of planning. We often say he who fails to plan to fail. It's so important. And I heard some wonderful things, and I just want to repeat them. Getting people to work together starts with discernment, developing a plan, showing people the why, that visionary casting, building trust, accountability. You talked about equitable distribution of resources, and it takes collaboration to get that right. When you focus, sometimes you can't see what you can't see. And so leaders, sometimes we lose heart and we think it's the people, but sometimes it's our planning. Sometimes it's our execution of the plan. We don't have the right people around us giving us the right feedback. Relationships with people that you serve. You talked about stakeholders. That's so important. Why do we seemingly at times struggle in our community with getting the right stakeholders at the table? You watch something going on in the news, press conference, or somebody's talking about a particular issue, and you're watching saying, why is such and such not at the table? Or why is this person not aware of what's going on? I think sometimes maybe it's due to a lack of knowledge. We don't quite know who are all the proper stakeholders that should be at the table. We don't pay enough attention to the God in other people versus just the God in us. What has God done through somebody else's life, their experience, their background? Elaborate a little bit more on stakeholders. Why do we seemingly struggle with getting the right stakeholders at the table? Desiree, you spoke to that. Maybe you can talk about the psyche or some other experience you've had that could give some insight to that.
I think when we sit at a table, we need to be uncomfortable wondering who's not here. If we sit at a table and we automatically assume the person that's sitting, the people that are sitting here is enough, I think that we should become uncomfortable when we look and we see that there aren't people who are not like us at a table.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to advance this work that we're doing, We have to challenge ourselves to be in uncomfortable spaces, to be with people who may not necessarily be in our circle of influence or even think the way that we do. Because once we give them a seat at the table to hear their perspective through collaborations, then they know they're included too.
Yes.
I think the agenda moves forward a lot better when we challenge ourselves to ask who's not at the table today, and before you leave, you ask everybody who is at the table who else should be here. And if we hold each other accountable, I enjoy meetings that I sit at when we ask each person, "Hey, I want you to think about 3 people who care about this agenda that we just identified." And I'd like you to message them right now before we leave today to make this commitment and invite them to be a part of the conversation. Because when we think about connections and how I might know somebody that you don't know, we are intentional about extending an invitation to the table. And so just being uncomfortable when we come to tables, because we want to make sure that we're doing the work to be inclusive, that we are challenging ourselves to be diverse,
Yes.
and of course common words, and that we want to make sure that what we're doing is equitable to serve the people who are at the table.
I think you're absolutely right, Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Pastor, I think we do it because we want to choose the safest people to be around.
Yeah.
And I think that's not feeling uncomfortable. If you only want to have the safe people around, I don't mind bringing up his name because he's my friend, and everything I say about him is factual. Gary Chambers, for example, I ran his last political campaign. Gary's someone that's often not invited to the dinner table or to the meeting table because he's controversy. And sometimes, and what people fail to realize is that when he is at the table, things do get done. His ideas are very contributing to the overall cause. And so he's someone that should be invited to the table despite his controversy or despite who he's ran against in political campaigns. I myself, I can remember being invited to all the tables. But then as I evolved in life and realized that even some of the people who I'm sitting at the table with don't mean the community any good, and that they're comfortable just being safe by having me at the table, I decided to pull away from the table because I wanted to be around those who might make folks feel uncomfortable, because I knew that feeling uncomfortable was the only way that we were going to be able to push our community forward. And so I really agree with what Ms. Collins has said, is that we have to be okay with inviting people to the table who might have differing views or different approaches, but have that leadership capability to come together with solutions and respect for one another, and walk away with respect for one another and appreciation of the discussion and sharing of ideas, not the exclusion of those who may pose challenges to the status quo.
Yeah.
Another part of that also is, another word for stakeholder is power, and who holds power. And a lot of times we don't give value to the people that we think actually holds the power. And stakeholder is not always the person with the title.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of different residents, and residents I believe, hold the true power to the change in that neighborhood. But a lot of times they're not invited to the table because they don't hold the business title, the entrepreneur title, or titles that are attached to dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that when we start giving value back to the people that actually are going to be a part of the change that you're making, then we can start inviting the right people to the table versus those that are only attached to positions and power and money.
I love it. Ladies, we're talking about stakeholders, getting the right stakeholders at the table. And sometimes, again, we take an approach to solving a problem. And I got 2 more questions and we'll wrap this up, to solving problems. And a lot of times we just don't have the right stakeholders. And why is that seemingly in our community sometimes more prevalent than in other communities? Anything you want to add to that just from your experience?
Absolutely, Pastor. For me, I'm a table breaker. Just so if nobody knows that about me, I don't like the idea of tables because they're restrictive. And, there's only so many seats that you can bring to a table. But when you can break that table and then people can sit around in a circle and have, a meaningful conversation that's full of purpose, intention, I think you get a lot more accomplished. I think the hardest thing is that when you invite certain people to the table, they think they own the table. They want to own the conversation. They want to own the work. but it's, it's collective work, it's collaborative work. And I think those are the types of people that you have to, I won't say cut out, but you have to figure out, how do you fit into this space and what are you good at? And I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, is figuring out what people are really good at, because that's what really moves the work. You may have somebody who, let's just say, you're a cook, but then you get them to go fix a car. But then you wonder why your car ain't going nowhere whenever you try to crank it up, because that person wasn't fit to be in that space. That person is fit to be a cook. That's where that person is strong at, is, nourishing people in a different space.
I love it. And I'll just share this. One of the successes we've had, not that we've arrived as a church in leadership, is something that I felt God gave me to put together. It's called VAS Leadership Academy. It talks about what I put together was a concept of, in order for any real goal to be accomplished that involves meeting a need for people, you need visionary leadership at the table, administrative leadership at the table, and you need people leadership at the table, what we would call shepherding leadership, right? Visionary leadership because goals matter, right? Administrative leadership because tasks matter, what has to get done, the accomplishment of the objectives. And people leadership because people matter. And everyone brings that value. So Lenny has talked about the table. There needs to be multiple tables at every approach to community problems or systemic issues. And I think sometimes we have this one-pronged approach to solving problems, and we forget we need a multi-pronged approach to addressing the problems in a systemic way and a sustainable way. And I think that is so important. Another thing for leaders who may be watching is the Socratic method of learning, right? The question. What is the question? I love Desiree's quote earlier. Who is not here? And that should make us uncomfortable. That's a question. The question always should lead the collaboration or the discussion. And the next of the Socratic method is dialogue, where everybody is equal at the table, having sufficient stakeholders, and we're just talking it out. And then learning begins after there's a question or questions, right? Dialogue, and now people can learn. I think there's not sufficient intelligence sometimes at the table, data. And so we do, when we go to put together a solution, we have sufficient data at the table to drive that solution. Such great feedback. I want to quickly switch, though, to another question here. What do you feel is the greatest need for community involvement now? What are the top 2-3 greatest needs in our community that demand greater community involvement? Just looking at South Louisiana, we can take EBR Parish, West, however you want to go. What do you see as the top 2 greatest or 3 greatest need that requires community involvement, this multi-tier approach for us coming together? Because I'm an optimist. I have hope that we can come together, that we can pull all of our institutions, whether it's of the entire marketplace, the synthesis of business, government, and education, bringing it all together so we do have more meaningful town halls and dialogues that come up with strategic plans. And there's not just one approach, but we got all of our institutions taking a stab at solving some of the systemic issues, poverty being one that was on Dr. King's mind when he was assassinated. Right? The Poor People's Campaign, we understand that. I'm not sure we've done and put our best foot forward at solving the poverty issue in America properly, right? There's no shortage of resources, shortage of food, but there is an overwhelming law of the world, which is greed and hate versus the law of love. I believe Dr. King, when he started this direct nonviolent action movement, he called it an experiment in love. Hate can't drive out hate, only love can do that. And love had to be the intrinsic motivator to drive whatever it is we're doing. But back to the need, what do you see as the greatest needs that we face now that we must come together, the churches, all aspects of our community, if we're going to have a more equitable and greater union? Desiree, I'll start with you.
I believe that I work in what I consider to be a ministry, which is early childhood. The work that we do every day, I do feel like is we are being an extension of God's hands and God's feet. And so early childhood is considered to be an intervention in that when we address the needs of children ages birth to 4 years old, out particularly looking at adverse childhood experiences that they may be experiencing, and how we as a community can be help to build resilience in those children. It's important for people to know what they can contribute when they see a child, as well as how they can support families of children, of small children, so that that we're helping human. I think the work that we do is laying the foundations for humanity.
Yeah.
I think it is definitely something that the community should rally around. The responsibility of raising children is not something that families can do alone.
Yeah.
When we see it as a form of intervention, that we ask ourselves, what can we do to help make this better? And I do want everybody to know that we do have a plan here at EVR Early Childhood Community Network. One of it is to allow kids to be able to have access to high quality early childhood programs. That we constantly are writing for grants to increase the capacity for children, regardless of income, to be able to have access to early learning experiences across our network. And we need the community. We need everybody to be involved. And when people ask, how can I help? I promise you, we have answers for how you can fit into the work that we do.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Lanius, what about you? What would you say near and dear to your heart is the greatest need that requires us to come together?
You're on mute, Lanius. Okay.
Yeah. I just unmuted it. I would say loss of life. Preservation of life inside of our city right now is being attacked on multiple different fronts. So I think that's one. I do agree with Ms. Desiree Collins. Parental engagement is one where we have the balls or the can has just been getting kicked down the road because there is no idea or identity around what they call parent accountability. And now I'm starting to use the phrase parent responsibility, because that's it's very key in education that we put so many roles and things on teachers, but we don't have those conversations or those intimate conversations with parents about what is your responsibility to ensure that your child is prepared, has a good meal, if they do have needs, that you're communicating what those needs are so that you can get the proper supports for your child so that we can be a better society and a better city. And I would say the last thing I would say is definitely infrastructure. Louisiana, I wouldn't say Louisiana, but Baton Rouge, we're 25 years behind region. And
looks like we're losing Brother Lanius due to a bad connection. Symphony, what would you say? Give me one top of mind issue, need that we must come together around.
Yeah, I would say revitalizing our Black communities. A lot of times we talk about equitable resources and we acknowledge the resources that we do not have. But at the same time, I don't think there is a one-stop shop, one fix all for all our communities. And we need to start looking at how can we intentionally revitalize these communities attached and with the residents that live in them. And when we do that, I think that creates a way of changing the perspective of the people that live there. I call them legacy residents because they've been there for a very long time. Their families have been there. And then when we start inviting legacy residents, we can truly understand what is the true need of the people that live there, invite them to make that revitalization change. Instead of us just saying, oh, they need a restaurant, or they need the coffee shop, or they need these things, because we're afraid of these buildings. So when we see these businesses, we instantly go to gentrification. And I think there's a beauty in a mixed community, a mixed resource space, and we need to start acknowledging what that really looks like in these spaces and intentionally do that, specifically in our African American communities.
I love it. Dr. James.
I absolutely support Ms. Collins and all the work that she is doing in the school system doing. So I think every individual and every institution, be it faith-based or NGO, we should be wrapping our arms around education and education policy in K through 12. That should be everybody's agenda, from the Baton Rouge Area Chamber to whomever. It should be everybody's agenda to focus on our public education system, ensuring that it has all the resources it needs to do the best job it could do. And a huge component of that should be parental engagement. Our parents need support. in raising their children in this generation, period. I am not of the conservative belief that it's their child. They should know how. Nowadays, with the internet, with cell phones on school campuses, I had that discussion this morning. I would love for EBR school system to find a way to ban cell phones on campus, except have cell phone, maybe recess periods twice a day for 5 minutes. But with what we have going on today and our children having so much exposure to different things across the world, not just in their own neighborhood, we have to find a way to support parents, support teachers, and give a quality education. That's the utmost importance that I believe we should focus on. And then I also believe it's all about economic empowerment. We have to find a way to get more money into urban minority communities and individuals, from jobs to job training, to job readiness, to self-employment. We have to find a way. We should not be building a $200 million zoo. We should not be building new buildings downtown. We should not be building new buildings on college campuses without ensuring that local and minority-owned people, minority people, not only work there, but they are the lead contractors in doing that work. Research shows that minority small businesses, they employ those who are formerly incarcerated more than any other groups. So let's empower our minority small businesses. And when folks get out of jail and have no job because of their criminal background, they'll have a place to go to get a job, to work for Dr. Gilmore, or to make ends meet until they get the skill sets to move on. So we got to focus on education, and we got to focus on putting more money in the Black community and our urban impoverished centers in our parish.
I love it. I think we need to continue this conversation and perhaps even open it up to the more stakeholders who are leading in our marketplace. So again, we have more voices at the table, and we're all challenged to more fair and strategic solutions. Let's go around real quick, and I want you to, for those who may watch this, how can we support the work that you're doing, coming together? Desiree, we'll start with your organization. How can those watching get more involved with what you're doing and that you're so passionate about? In 30 seconds or less, tell us how can those who want to get involved with what you're doing? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. You can go to EBR, Early Childhood Community Network. We do have a Facebook page. You can follow and love and share our the posts that we have there, because it keeps people aware of what we have going on. Currently, right now, for families who have children who are 3 or 4 years old, regardless of income, their children can register and get enrolled to go to school right now. So we don't want the learning gap. We don't want kids to have to wait until August to start school. Maybe they didn't get registered before. Maybe they're sitting at home, or maybe they just recently transferred from one place to another. I want them to reach out to us. Let them know that we can help and we can get their children seated in programs at no cost to them.
Incredible. Thank you. Symphony, what about you?
Yes. So I'm the community engagement manager for Miss City Redevelopment Alliance, and I'm always advocating for people to get involved. There's so many free resources that are available, and we consistently host different community events, from community cleanups that you can host in your own community to I train residents on how to truly advocate for their spaces and provide grant dollars to create their community improvement project for them. And so you can reach us at www.misscityredevelopment.org or our Instagram page, Miss City Redevelopment, and reach out to us to see there's a community project happening. We have some happening this month, and also potential opportunities for grant dollars, because I feel a lot of times we always want to be a part of the work, but we may not feel confident to be a part of the work. Either you're not sure how you add to that, or you're not, a little bit about it, and I can support you in those efforts. So please connect with me, reach out, and see how you can be a part of your community in these facets.
Awesome. Dr. James.
Yeah, there are a couple focuses I have right now with my nonprofit. If you are a small business looking to build capacity, looking to grow your business, I'd love to connect with you, especially if you are a minority or woman-owned business. My nonprofit has funding to help build and support local nonprofit businesses. Local businesses here, small businesses here in Baton Rouge. You can visit my website at www.Dr. James Gilmore Jr. IHD, that stands for Institute for Human Development.org, to register for our business services. Then also, I just contracted with 2 therapists. If you all know of anyone that needs some free therapy or counseling, my board of directors is also focusing on providing individual or family or group therapy. Again, I don't do that for a living, but I'm fortunate enough I have the capacity to pay people to do it. So if you need free counseling services, or you know of a child or a family that needs free counseling services, because it goes back to a lot of the issues in our community with trauma and violence, please go to my website and let me know. We'll be glad. Those are 2 biggest focuses: is mental health, and also building local small businesses, are things that my board and I are focusing on this year. And then last but not least is election year. Been doing campaigns since I was about 17 years old. So, be sure to vote, be active in voting. Thank you all for passing the tax for the school system. And again, participating in the political process is of utmost importance for all of us to be able to see the change we need in our community as well.
Incredible. Listen, I want to thank you all for sharing your insights and just the work that you do and the passion you exude in doing it. I do look forward to us working together, perhaps even more, sharing what you're at work doing. And at any time, I know, speaking for Dr. Christy Perry, who should be coming back up to the screen, the work we do at United Excel in helping people understand how to advocate for their community and putting them in contact with people such as yourself and the organizations that you lead. It's so important in the work we do and in the time in which we live. I want to wrap up my comments and give it back to Dr. Perry around what I started with. Why so? I see Dr. Lanny is back. Dr. Lanny, yes. If you're able to share quickly with the audience, how can people get more involved with the work that you're doing? If they want to connect, how can they get involved?
Yes, I'll say first, I'm sorry, I had to switch my computers. I didn't realize my phone was dying. That's the reason why the audio is going in and out. But anybody that wants to get involved with the work of the 100, they can always visit our website at www.100blackmenbr.org to find out anything about any of our programs. What we do is we mentor young Black men all across this community, all across the Capital Region. I also serve in the capacity as the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board President. So anybody that is a stakeholder, that is wants to get a seat at the table of education, that wants to be involved, intricately involved in moving the work and moving the needle for our students. They can reach me at any time at dlannis@ebrschools.org. I'm always open to anybody that wants to be involved in that work, anybody that has a capacity to want to work with kids. We're all hands on deck, and we need it now more than ever.
Wow. Again, I am so pleased just to have the opportunity to navigate this conversation and to hear from such incredible minds and voices in our community. God bless you all. I'll say as we open up about why so many people perhaps lose passion or don't have it, and that's due to depression and or not knowing just what's important to them. I'll say to you, if there's anyone who's watching and you've lost hope, you've lost passion, and you need someone to talk to, you can definitely reach United Christian Faith Ministries at 225-927-1161. I'll be willing to offer any of my services free of charge, counseling, mentoring, whatever that is. And there's an incredible group of leaders at our church that are willing to share and encourage you in the way as well. Quote from Dr. King: a man or woman isn't really have a life worth living until they find something that they're willing to die for.
That's right.
That's passion. That's purpose, right? And I encourage all of you who may be watching and listening that if you do through self-confrontation or self-examination, realize you've kind of lost some passion, you're in a dark place or a negative space, and you're in a leadership role, reach out to those around you. It's important that you do that, because lives are at stake, resources are at stake, and everything rises and falls on leadership. And this conversation was about a perspective from leadership, but it was also to leaders. And so let's do this work together, put aside our pride and our petty differences, and let's work together for the common good of all. And I believe God is well pleased when we do that. Thank you again for the opportunity to engage you. We do love you. And we got a special gift for all of our panelists today as well. Dr. Perry will make sure we get that to you. Dr. Perry, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Special thanks to our panelists and our moderator. You all really dropped some nuggets tonight. If anyone was looking for, hey, where do I start? They gave us a few places to start. So we have a lot of work to do. This was an awesome panelist, and we appreciate the willingness to help us spread the love of Jesus, particularly
Amen.
through the lens of biblical justice.
Amen.
If you want more information about the events that United Excel is hosting or to join our listserv, you may text More Justice to 225-250-1970. Again, More Justice to 225-250-1970. You may say, I'm interested in the cause. I'm interested in social justice. I want more training. I want to learn how to fight from a biblical perspective. You can register for our upcoming class by texting 225-250-1970. Text justice to register to 225-250-1970. Again, Passion Week is just beginning. We are in day 2. This is Tuesday of Passion Week. Yesterday, we had the wonderful opportunity to go and serve in the Glen Oaks area. Tomorrow is Wednesday, Passion to Pray, our midweek renewal service. We'll be at 6:30 at United Christian Faith Ministries at 9229 North Ridgewood. Join us. Thursday, Passion to Change, we'll have our Cultural Shift concert with special guest rappers and singers, 7 o'clock p.m. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. We want to see your face in the place. And then on Friday, Passion to Love, Forgiving Arise theatrical performance at United Christian Faith Ministries. That's going to be at 6 o'clock p.m. Saturday, Passion to Connect. Join our missions team as we go out. We're going to have a homeless mobile outreach. Meet us at United Christian Faith Ministries at 9 o'clock a.m. And later that day, we welcome everyone for our church-wide cookout. We're going to have a lot of good food for you. 1 o'clock p.m. Everyone is invited. And last but not least, Sunday is Passion to Redeem. Dress in your best and join us for Resurrection Day service at 8 o'clock a.m. and 11 o'clock a.m. To register for any of the events that I just mentioned, simply text Passion 23 to 225-250-1970. That's Passion 23 to 225-250-1970. Well, this has been a wonderful evening, and I thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, and have a good night, and enjoy Passion Week.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice.